of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, number 2, approval of agenda. Do we have any? I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. Second. Moved by Amanda, second by Lucy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so before we jump into our recognitions, I did want to read an introduction for tonight. So good evening. As Chair of the Board of Education, I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to those listening via Zoom or YouTube. The board and I are happy to see that you have joined us as we celebrate achievement, review information, and make policy decisions related to the effective operation of Region 13. This is a regular board meeting, and all items that will be discussed or voted upon are on this evening's agenda and posted as required. As a board, we are here to set goals, listen to the reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or solve the problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent. Meetings of the board are open to the public. It is a time when the board conducts its business of governing the school system in a public setting. The regular meetings are not meetings with the public. Therefore, comments from the audience will be confined to the time designated for the public to address the board. Due to the anticipated large number of public comment this evening, the board will be limiting the time that the board can, the board will be limiting public comment to 3 minutes per person for a total of 30 minutes. At that time, the board can evaluate to continue with or end public comment. We ask that anyone who has submitted correspondence to the board on a specific agenda item to please defer their time to others who may not have had a chance yet to address the board. Decorum and courtesy are important elements in effective public meetings. Please silence your cell phones or communication devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. I'm pleased that you have taken the time this evening to join us. We are very proud of the school system, and we thank you for your interest in being here. The other thing I do want to mention is capacity in this room is 72 people, and that is the chairs plus 3 standing. So we're gonna try to keep it so we're okay where we are. Much more than this, we'll have to ask if you to step out in the hallway. Okay, so we will move on to number 3, presentations and recognition. A, MTA and Kagenschlag presentation, the Germany Special Olympics, Zach Ryer and Ethan Neuer.
Well, I'm going to do the joy of introducing these wonderful young men this evening. I'm Debbie Stone. I'm the principal at CRHS. You guys know that, but they don't all know it, so now they do. So tonight, in alignment with our strategic plan, the learners I'm about to introduce had the opportunity to leverage their global resources and have had an authentic experiential learning opportunity during a recent trip overseas. Mr. Bajoros and the 2 students standing here traveled to Germany this summer as the North American representatives of Kagenschlag, Special Olympics Connecticut, and Special Olympics North America at the 2023 Olympic Global Youth Summit. Youth Leadership Summit. I got it, Ethan, I got it. He's in college now, so I have to be a little bit better at how I do this. This summit created a variety of connections for these learners, as well as our own educational community at Kagenschlag and MTA. As a result of this successful trip, the Kagenschlag Regional High School Unified Program was recruited to apply to be part of a unified exchange between Special Olympics Latin America and Special Olympics North America. I'm happy to announce that last week, Mr. Bajoris was told that we were selected as a finalist in this process. There'll be more to come on that when we get the official word, hopefully. He checked today, he wasn't there. Zach Ryer and Ethan Neuer are here to talk more about their experience in Germany and the global connections that they've made. Please welcome them.
Hello. Hello, my name is Zachary Ryer, and I'm here today to talk about my wonderful experience in Berlin, Germany. Initially, getting there was troublesome due to a flight delay, but once we landed, everything was great. When I arrived in the hostel, I got to meet and talk to many new people from around the world. Once everybody was settled in, we were divided up into groups where we worked together for meetings and projects. Even though my team and I were pretty busy with the meetings and all, the experience was overall great. My favorite part of the trip was the cultural event where many participants and people from around the world were able to share their culture. For America, we set up a booth talking about American sports like football, even though some people confused it for rugby. I was able to speak for Connecticut Special Olympics and Special Olympics USA. I was able to share all of what myself, my partner, Ethan, and Mr. Bergeros love about Special Olympics and why it is so important to us. My speeches were heard by many people, included high-ranking Special Olympic workers, which made the experience even more worthwhile. I cannot express enough how fortunate I am to have had the opportunity, and I will be forever grateful to Mr. Bergeros and his leadership.
All right, hi, so I'm Ethan. I'm not gonna do this thing. So as you see on the board there, I think that was my favorite part, was when we got to present to the US Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona. And with that, we were able to network with organizations across the country, also across the world, like what Ms. Dunn talked about with the exchange program. And we are now able to do our unified bowling trip for a second year in a row, which we brought 120 athletes from across the district bowling together, which was my favorite part. And then we got to meet some pretty cool people like Miss America and Tim Tebow and people that have a very good name recognition. So, yeah.
So that's just one of the connections they made this year, and we're hoping for more. We'll let you know as soon as we know if we were selected to represent Special Olympics North America in the North America in the exchange. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Zach. We're incredibly proud of you guys. I know that you had some hiccups on the way there. There might have been some luggage missing.
Yeah.
It looks like you guys had an amazing experience, and we're incredibly proud of you. And this isn't the first time I've seen you back here. You've been here for the Cogachok Carnival too. So we hope to continue seeing you, and thank you. Okay. 3B, RSD13 2023-2024 Teacher of the Year, Penny this year.
This is like a proud principal moment. I have the very famous Jenny Lucier here. I think everybody knows who she is because she's so fabulous. So I'm going to read some fabulous words about her. So it's with great pleasure and immense pride that I stand before you and introduce Jenny Lucier as the RSD13 Teacher of the Year. This prestigious award is a testament to the dedication, passion, and unwavering commitment to education that Jenny has demonstrated throughout her time in RSD13. In a world where teachers play a pivotal role in shaping the future, Jenny has exemplified the qualities of an exceptional educator. Her journey in the field of education has been nothing short of remarkable, touching the lives of countless learners and inspiring fellow educators along the way. Jenny is not just a teacher, she's a mentor, a guide, and a source of inspiration for students and colleagues. Her library is not merely a place of learning, it's a sanctuary where students are encouraged to dream, explore, and realize their full potential and play. She provides our learners with ways to explore the world with dignity through creativity, experiences, books, conversations, and Skypes across the world. She embraces everything learner-centered and ensures all of our learners have personalized experiences at Brewster School and now Lyman again. Jenny is a leader of project-based learning, student-centered learning, technology, theme. She's an advocate of equity and inclusion within our district. Her work at the building and district level to provide learning environments that are unbiased for all learners is commendable. She is a professional educator that spends hours outside of the school setting seeking out professional development opportunities in library media, technology, STEAM, and equity education. Jenny has worked on curriculum development with her colleagues that creates an inclusive learning environment that is learner-centered and personalized for all. She works diligently to provide learners in our school and district opportunities to meet with diverse authors and experience diverse texts that represent all of our learners' cultures, ethnicities, socioeconomic backgrounds, and family structures. Jenny leads our school in a supportive and caring manner to take risks, learn and do innovative things, and help learners find their voice. She encourages learners to lead, have voice in their learning, and explore learning through a learner-centered lens. She supports our learner-led assembly each week. She's pivotal in that. And each week to share learning, support our community, and celebrate accomplishments. She is the heart of our assembly, but you would never know it as the students effortlessly or independently lead the school. So without further ado, please join me in congratulating and honoring our Teacher of the Year, Jenny Lucier. Her impact on education and the lives she has touched are immeasurable, and we are profoundly grateful for her remarkable contributions.
I wasn't sure if I was supposed to say something or not say something, but I will just say that, you know, it is truly an honor to be able to stand in front of all these people, and it's so exciting. I see some of my new students. I was practicing their names as I was coming in tonight because being at Lyman only one day a week is a little tricky. So I'm just practicing all the time because, you know, saying people's names is important. And so, right, Nora? And Leo, got it, I'm working on it. When I spoke at convocation, I did talk about the importance of connections, and I talked about the importance of play. And I know not everybody was able to be there for that, but I stand really firm on those things because that is what has driven really everything I've ever done, both as a classroom teacher when Kevin hired me back in 1999, and when I know Kevin, sorry. We're dating both of us, Kevin, it's fine. But then when I switched to the library in 2008 and really found the thing that I am truly most passionate about, and, you know, I've worked with so many of the people that are here, and, you know, everything I do is for these people and for these kids and for this school district. And so I just appreciate everything that you do for us. So thank you so much. And I think have a great night.
Sorry. I know you don't like to see attention to yourself. So the balloons might have been too much for you.
Yeah. It's fine.
All right. Number 4, public comment. At the beginning of the meeting, public comment should refer to items on the agenda. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker as specified. Public participation at Board of Education meetings, chairman of the Board of Education may at their discretion restrict, extend or curtail comments at any time. All comments must refer to the educational programming of RSD13 and conform in the matter and content to the district's core ethical values. Comments at the beginning of the meeting are limited to items on the agenda. It is board's practice not to respond to public comment during the meeting. For purpose of Public comment we have received from Allison Atkin, Jessica Schaff, Caroline Goldschneider, Jill Soboleski, Matt Soboleski, Allison Olsted, Ryan Olsted, Jenny Shevchik, Allison Kodos, Mark Simmons, Jennifer Simmons, Delia Regan, Lauren Biello, Vanessa and Chris Amaral, Sarah Robertson, Emma Quick, Brian Reed, Tricia Pohl, Kristen Allen, Lori Fusco, Candace Burrett, and I believe there were two more that just barely came in. I can mention those in a second. So at this time, if anyone that hasn't already shared on that topic or has another topic on the agenda they'd like to speak on, you can come forward.
Good evening. My name is Christina Walsh. My address is 5 Greenview in Middlefield. I'm a parent of 3 children currently attending RSD13 schools, a 7th grader, a 1st grader, and a kindergartner at John Lyman School. I'm opposed to the interim reconfiguration plan proposed by the BOE to begin grade and school reconfiguration beginning in the 24-25 school year. It's unclear to me what the BOE hopes to gain by imposing this plan beginning in the next school year, when the plan for a K-5 school appears to be in the beginning stages and will likely take years to start construction at Memorial. Speaking just from my perspective, my kindergartner is a child that likes consistency and absolutely does not like change. She was about 1.5 years when the lockdown for COVID began, and she spent 2 years of that after that, mostly seeing the same group of 5 children at her home daycare. She's only now just getting used to more social and learning settings. She began the school year nervous, but was able to walk in with her sister holding her hand to help ease her apprehension. Requiring her to transition to a completely different school next year and start all over again without her sister or the things she's becoming familiar with will cause her a lot of anxiety. Then she would have to transition back to Lyman the year after. This provides no stability for her or her peers. This is a time in their lives when they should be becoming more confident and more comfortable with school and maybe even enjoy it. This interim plan will take that away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sorry, getting over COVID long-term hoarseness. So if you can't hear me, yell. My name is Christy. My name is Christy Dougalansky. I live at 458 Cherry Hill Road in Middlefield. I've been a resident of the community for 40 years. We came here because of the education system. We came here because of the community it developed and the fact that our children were able to go through the system feeling connected to everything they were involved in. And I had children in both versions, so it wasn't like I was choosing one over the other. What I do object to, and I'm here to say, my husband was on the Board of Ed for 9 years. I know how hard your decisions have to be, but I think this transition program is creating a vignette program for kids where they have to adjust every 2 years, and I think it's wrong. I think that you should keep them where they are or move quickly into the 5 grade system. And not do this every 2 years of shifting kids around. You already had them go through COVID. Now you're going to say to them, you can have this group of people and then whoops, we're going to move you to the school with new teachers and whoops, we're going to move you again. I think it doesn't do what you're trying to do in the long run. And I think it's an error that should not be allowed to happen. I have no children in the programs. It's not like my children are going to be the people that are affecting that, but I have grandkids. And I know what they need for continuity. I know they need to have multi-generational groups so they can play with their 4th grade friends and their 2nd grade friends. And they can have teachers who can follow them through as they go through their sessions. I think it's important that you think about the kids, not just the economic value of what you have to do. I know your decisions are hard, but please think about those children. I have, like I said, always thought that this education system is one of the best in the state, and I hope that that doesn't change. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Ercolani. I'm a resident of Durham, and I'm here to speak regarding the interim proposal. Excuse me, let me start over. I'm here to speak regarding the interim proposal for reconfiguration. I agree that families across the district should have access to an equitable experience, and the current configuration and schedule does not offer that. The ending of school choice also does not offer that moving forward. Bringing the students together would help to address this. With one student going to Lyman and one student currently at Brewster, it is clear that there is some disconnect in the implementation and scheduling of the two programs. While both programs are unique and special in their own way, I think bringing the best components of each program together and bringing our children together will actually give them the best experience possible in this district. The interim plan does not address all of the issues, but it is only temporary, and it is a segue to a more streamlined and equitable outlook for the district. I commend the board for the hours and hours of meeting minutes and research that has gone into this issue. To the community members who argue a lack of transparency, I would direct them to the minutes from the past several years to understand the events that have gotten our district to this point. And if you need any evidence of the divide that this topic has in our community, you need not only look any further than the community discussions online. I see some requesting more community feedback, yet these same individuals have no interest in hearing any opinion that differs from theirs. This is not how we move forward. I have seen comparisons to neighboring districts, and yet none of those comparisons take into consideration the details specific to our district, such as the history of school choice, our skyrocketing per pupil costs, and our low enrollment numbers. To comment that Wallingford, for example, has multiple elementary schools serving students in the same grade, and ignore the fact that Wallingford's current enrollment is more than double of ours is a naive and irresponsible comparison. I encourage parents to seek out their own information and form their own opinions based on minutes and research that has been done relevant to our district. I would also like to note that during the August 9th meeting, Superintendent Shook stated that the leadership of the district felt the proposed plan was both doable and practical, and that the district leadership is prepared to support the plan. While we have heard arguments regarding how expert opinions are valuable, think about the years of collective experience the leadership of this district has. Think about the unique perspective they have had in serving all students in RSD13. To not put our trust in them and to not put our support in them is not only disrespectful, it undermines the countless hours of work they have given to this very district. The district leadership has also asked the board to make a decision by the fall, so planning can be made, and I agree. We have spent too many years with too many boards who set unmeasurable goals with no time frame. A goal without a time frame is a wish, and we cannot keep wishing that the issues in the district will fix themselves. I ask that the board take action tonight on a vote. If not, I would ask at the very least that they present a clear plan that includes set dates for when a decision will be made. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miriam Wellborn. I'm both a parent and a psychologist in this area. I live in Middlefield on Strickland Road. I'm the parent to a child who's going to be in kindergarten, 24-25 year. And I'm a psychologist who's worked with kids for over 20 years. So I feel like I'm in a unique position to speak about my experience and also being a parent. I'm very concerned about the reconfiguration. There's a lot of research on what is called high frequency school transitions. There's decades of research that was done with military, migrant, low-income families. Those were the ones that have had high frequency school transitions. This is kind of a unique situation as far as the school transition. But what is found 100% across the board is the damage that high frequency transition happens to kids. The collateral damage. The collateral damage with math, literacy, emotional, psychological development is, it doesn't feel acceptable to the children of the community. One of the studies, let's see, I have a few studies, and one of the reasons why I wanted to present these studies, because I feel it's important to have on public record that going into a reconfiguration with transitions every 2 years, that we know going in, we're causing damage and there's going to be collateral damage. So that as we continue to track these children, these pandemic children, and we see what we know is going to happen with high frequency transitions occur, such as externalizing, internalizing behaviors, acting out, self-harm, we're going to see a reduction in math and literacy proficiency. We know this is going to happen with high frequency school transitions, that we can't play naive. We can't say that, oh, with transitioning kids every 2 years, we thought it was a good idea. We just didn't know. We know. And I want it to be on record that we know, and there's a preponderance of evidence showing the damage that is done 3-4 years from now. When we see this materialize, we can't say we didn't know, so that there can be an accountability if the decision moves forward to do a transition every 2 years. I have a list of references for the studies that date back 40 years on these effects that I would like to submit so that it can be part of the record. Again, so when we start seeing our district have reduced proficiencies, we can then have accountability because we know this is what's going to happen. And for me, it feels unethical to make a decision knowing the damage it's going to cause and moving forward. Anyway. So,
Thank you. And if you have those, you could email them to me.
what you need, an email them to
You said you wanted to give them to us, so if you want to email them. or-
Yeah, can I just hand them to
Yeah,
you?
absolutely.
Yeah, these are just, this is just like a few studies, there's, but I underlined some of the.
Hello, can I speak?
Yeah, I don't think you're.
Sure, Mike Sherkowski from Durham.
Did you submit an email?
No, I did not. Am I supposed to?
Okay, no, I didn't, I couldn't remember if you had it.
Oh, no, I didn't. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to begin by voicing my opposition to this plan to close both Lyman and Brewster so that we can house students in an $80+ million facility at Memorial. Instead of this, I think we should be using our resources to improve both schools, which cost much less and cause fewer disruptions. In addition, you can point to many other districts around the state to see that massive construction projects like the one we're proposed to do are consistently over budget and over time. Frankly, I'm concerned that we're embarking on a process that'll take 5 to 6 years to complete at an incredible cost of money to the taxpayers of Durham and Middlefield, which we will have to front in hopes that the state will reimburse. However, the bulk of my 3 minutes tonight has to do with the logistics or lack thereof of this interim plan. Right now, there are 350 days until the next school year, and we have no plan for how hundreds of students will be educated for years K through 5. The board should slow down this massive undertaking until basic questions are answered. For instance, what will class sizes look like? Are the schools able to hold students from both towns? On the August 29th meeting, the builder discussed the need for portable classrooms. How many will we need? How much will this cost? Is it budget neutral? And if so, how? At the very least, the citizens of this town need to know how many kids are in each class and where they'll be learning. Second, has this plan been evaluated by any educational experts from outside this district? Has the district consulted anyone to provide advice or caution? From what I've gathered, this is a unique situation, and I don't mean this in a good way. I mean that in a sense that most school boards would not attempt it because of its negative effect on student well-being. Third, what will the movement of classrooms and teachers look like? Are teachers required to move their classroom? If so, will they have time to do it? If not, who will move their materials to the other school? Will moving equipment happen during the summer or during the school year? Because either one's bad. What's the plan to move kindergarten tables, chairs, and equipment to one school and the other, and vice versa with the 3rd and 4th grade? Will teachers have to move their own stuff? How much time and what cost will it take to move several classrooms around? Next, when will teachers know that they have to switch grades or buildings? How many teachers will have to switch grades or schools? If that's the case, do you foresee any teachers leaving because of this? As it stands now, there's a recruitment battle going around the state for talent, and I fear that this extreme plan may cause some teachers to seek out other districts. And if they leave, how will we recruit teachers with the current shortage? How will we recruit teachers knowing that they're going to walk into this unknown situation with so many moving parts? What about curriculum? With so many divisions and buildings and grades, how will teachers collaborate to establish transitions and discuss student needs? Any elementary teacher will tell you how beneficial it is to discuss topics like this within the building. Finally, what about school culture and well-being? A lot of students look up to older learners as role models. Now we'll have schools without that. I please ask you to pause and consider all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
They said squeeze to move, so I'm gonna move it. Good evening, my name is Yanina Ettinger. I am a resident of Middlefield. And if you don't know me, my husband and I together have 6 children. The eldest is in high school here at Coggins. The next 2 are at Strong. We are having an off year this year for Memorial. And then we have 3 at Lyman. I have a unique experience because I've been coming to these Board of Ed meetings for the past 12 years. Since my eldest is now 15, I've been coming since she was 4 years old. I'm really addressing the people here tonight because the board they've heard me speak several times over many years. And I'm here to just say, I trust them. And from a parent that has come from many years, I know that there's a lot of questions and I know that there's a lot of unrest because I was one of those parents 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, going, what is going on? But the end result of having one school where your kids can hold each other's hands and walk in together, where they can have preschoolers and kindergartners looking up to 5th graders, where you can have all school assemblies if we're planning ahead now and willing to put in the money, where everyone's involved, where all the resources are right there, the teachers can collaborate. The end result is going to be a pre-K through 5 school as an option. I know not definitely, but if we choose that option and we let the board move forward, then we can have that rosy world that everyone really deep down inside wants for their kids. So please, I know it's going to be a hard transition for this interim, but if we just give them our trust and we just trust that our kids are really resilient, even though we think they're not half the time. I really thought my kids couldn't bounce back from some crazy stuff that's happened to us, but they do. So please put your faith in them and know that the end result of having one renovated as new building may look like 80 million or 72 point something million, as I heard at the last meeting, but the net is going to be about 11 million, maybe a little bit off with some extra costs. It's not going to be 72 to 80 million because we'll get reimbursed from the state. Please support them. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Heidinger. Oh, I'm good. Theater training.
Sam, do you have comments that are different than the email that you have sent?
My email to you was a question for information and preparation for this meeting.
Okay.
So I was
You're not gonna have a comment. Okay. that's
yeah,
okay.
thank you
I
so
was
much.
wondering.
No, I just to clarify, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I am a resident of Middlefield. I am here once again to express my concern regarding the interim reconfiguration on which the board is planning to vote tonight, item 8B on the agenda. I do want to address the concerns, although I appreciated that our comments are divisive or disrespectful, and I'd like to say that if addressed respectfully, it is our right to express our opposition if we're informed and if we're concerned. Along with substantial number of fellow parents and residents, I have concerns regarding the interim plan, specifically its impacts on our learners, on our community, and what seems to be a troubling lack of data supporting the board's claim to neutral impact budget. As members of the board are already aware, following our last meeting, I reached out requesting that specific data supporting the budget and logistical assumptions of this interim move and or the mitigation measures that would need to be taken. It was presumed that if any claims to the budget impact were made, they would be able to support it. There would be data, to support it. I received a response from board chair, Ms. Dahlheimer, which I do earnestly appreciate given the heightened focus and communication. I did want to preface that. In which she quoted Dr. Shook saying that the leadership team does feel that it is doable and practical and would not have an adverse impact on the budget. The response then goes on to say that the word feel was meant as a preliminary analysis, and the board gives direction to move forward. Administration would work to analyze the plan in regards to the upcoming budget. And I want to respond by saying respectfully, this feels vague at best, and it doesn't constitute the data substantiating the claim that was requested. I understand the details of the plan's budget will be ironed out following the vote to move forward with the plan. This approach does not feel dissimilar from what was seen in the attempt to close John Lyman, and it feels entirely to be putting the cart before the horse. It lacks pragmatism to move forward without knowing the full impact of your decision. Additionally, even if we can assume that the interim plan will have no budget impact and can somehow be administered with a seamless transition to next year, we are then left with a handful of hypothetical, more permanent plans of which no final decision has been made, nothing yet has been voted on, and we could be at risk for being responsible for the entirety of the cost because that reimbursement from the state is not guaranteed. If any of these moving pieces go awry, we could be stuck with this interim plan, moving our children between schools every other year. And we won't be promised that end result that my friend and neighbor Yanina so eloquently described. The interim reconfiguration is a plan to precede a plan. Neither is fully configured, all while our school's current and real-time needs go unaddressed. We have maintenance that needs to happen now for the safety and well-being of our learners, and as per the state to whom this board is duty bound, the board's responsibilities include proper maintenance of schools' facilities. As none of these schools have been voted to close, and as we still actively have learners in these schools, the board should allocate focus and funds to these concerns instead of 14 hypothetical uses of our budget. Lastly, it seems senseless to create such disruption for our learners when they have only just now regained some semblance of normalcy after these last few years.
10 seconds.
On behalf of these learners and the families and faculty and all petitioners who have expressed their opposition thus far, I strongly request the board to postpone their vote and reconsider. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sam.
Hello, my name is Chris DiGennaro. I'm a resident of Middlefield and the privileged parent of a child in RSD13 school district. This is my first time addressing the Board of Education. So I did what anyone would do. I checked YouTube and it looked like it was pretty rowdy. So then I text my cousin who's in the New Haven school system, and she told me to be thoughtful and non-aggressive. So I'll do that. Just to keep it simple, I believe this will be disruptive, and I implore you to show resolve in your decision-making and restrain your haste. Thanks.
Thank you.
My comments are different from my email. My name is Mark Simmons. I am a Durham resident, and I want to address topic 8B, the proposed interim elementary grade level reconfiguration. I firmly believe that the process surrounding this proposal is deeply flawed, and I'm going to urge the board to reconsider voting on it tonight. First and foremost, let me address the issue of calling this an interim plan. An interim plan implies that there's a long-term strategy in place, a vision for the future that guides the decisions that we make today. However, as of right now, no such long-term plan exists. I'm aware that the board is exploring options for a new K-5 school, but that's potentially years away. How can we make informed decisions about the future of our education system without a clear understanding of where we are headed? Our students, parents, and teachers deserve better than a temporary fix that may create more problems than it solves. We need a comprehensive, well-thought-out plan that considers the needs and aspirations of our community. This should not be treated as an interim plan, but a long-term one, and given all the care and due diligence that deserves. The proposal also appears to repeat past mistakes of this board. I'm not speaking to this specific board, but to the board in general, voting on plans without all the necessary details. We've seen this happen before, where decisions were made hastily without a long-term plan in place. Just this summer, the board voted to end school choice with no plan in place as to how that will be handled. As we stand right now in this moment, if a parent of an incoming kindergartner asked the board which school their child is going to next fall, how would you answer them? What school would they be going to? It is your duty to ensure that every decision you make is thoroughly researched, well documented, and supported by a comprehensive understanding of the implications. Voting on a proposal without sufficient details is a disservice to our community and undermines the trust we place in this board to make informed decisions. Lastly, transparency and accountability are vital to the success of any educational reform. To date, not enough details have been provided about this. The lack of information has left parents, teachers, students, and the entire district in the dark, unable to fully grasp the potential impact on their lives and education. Some questions to think about when you consider your vote on this topic tonight. Does this reconfiguration solve a clearly defined problem? What will be the metrics for success? How will they be measured? Who will be held accountable for its success? Before making any decisions, I ask the board to show your work and show the community that this really is the best plan that you can come up with. In conclusion, I ask the board to take a step back, reconsider the proposal, and ensure that we have a clear long-term plan in place before making any further changes to our district. I urge you to prioritize the best interests of our students and community by creating a comprehensive long-term plan, avoiding hasty decisions, and providing all necessary details for a transparent and informed discussion. And together, we can all work towards a brighter future for our schools and one that truly benefits all stakeholders involved. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good evening. My name is Russ Quick, and I'm from Durham. I grew up in town attending RSD13 schools from kindergarten through 9th grade with the configuration that actually has been proposed back when corn was still open. I want to start by thanking the board for your commitment to ensuring all the children in our community are receiving an equitable educational experience. I may very well be the only one speaking in support of the board tonight, and we know that historically that has always been the case. The opposition comes out loud every time their school community will be faced with a change, and they have been successful at halting any progress the board has tried to make, despite the fact that the children and families at Brewster Memorial have been haphazardly shuffled around the district for years. The one-track plan voted on in 2019 was aimed at bringing our community together and integrating the approaches from the Hot ID program and contemporary programs in all of our schools. The inequities were recognized back then, and there was much time and effort put into delineating what the program would look like. But we can now see the implementation of this one-track plan went by the wayside when Lyman remained open and the inequities have continued to grow. I actually want to thank the district for doubling down on the field trip inequities last year because it opened the door for parents to examine the differences further and recognize what programming was missing from Memorial and seek insight as to why it was missing. While I bring with me tonight a petition signed by 95 community members wanting to encourage the board to move forward tonight with the plan vote and the interim configuration. Many of these people are afraid to speak up or share their opinions publicly, which is sad. I think it's important for us as adults to recognize that we can hold respectful conversations about topics which we disagree on. We are all here because we want what's best for our children, and it is okay if we disagree on what that looks like. Parents should be able to advocate for their children without fear that their difference in opinion will be taken out on that child. And that should extend to the board of members as well. Good people are not going to want to vote or not going to want to run for these positions if they have to worry about their child being excluded from events or their families being harassed at home due to their opinions or their position on a board. While there are still questions relating to the implementation of the interim plan, I have watched the board discuss all the plans while keeping in mind the effects of reconfigurations or construction on the education, as well as physical space and reviewing the enrollment numbers. I believe this is one of the few plans for which we have the physical space, and it will also more evenly distribute both the students and their needs across all of the teachers at that grade level and allow for grade level teachers to come together and work towards a one-track approach while we await a long-term plan to take effect. Thank you.
If you could hold on 1 second, Patrick. I just want, since we have 5 minutes left, I just want to check online to see if there's anyone that wants to make a comment online. If you're online in Zoom and you would like to make a comment, could you raise your hand so that you can get a gauge on how much? So in the meantime, while we're waiting for hands to be raised, Patrick, if you would like to go, great.
Yes, hi, thank you. I'm feeling a little under the weather today as well, so my voice is a little weird, sorry. So my name is Patrick Holden, I'm from Durham, I'm a former student in this district as well, from K through 12. I actually have some former teachers here, hello again. And I mean, I don't have too much else to add to this conversation because I think so many people have made very, very good points tonight. I would just like to kind of put myself in support of the idea that I do not believe this interim plan is robust enough in order to provide the best experience for everybody. And I think we need to hold the brakes just a little bit so we can have those discussions a little bit more in detail. I will say I'm concerned definitely about the students' well-being, and as I said, people have already made very good points about that I don't feel I can repeat as well. What I would like to say is just for the practicality of it, I'm not sure how it's going to end up working out. Because it's an interim plan, it's supposed to be temporary. I'm having trouble understanding why we're jumping to this first rather than figuring out our long-term goal before we get to that. I know those discussions have already been going on, but I think it would be wise to halt on this specifically until we know the end goal, the time span of where we want to get to that and how long it's going to take, and then figure out that interim in the first place, so that the interim can directly support what our end goal is. So then we're not kind of just floating around in the dark, which is something that has been happening since before I left high school here. Along with that, with some of the plans that would involve renovating the different schools or renovating Memorial, this interim plan would be directly disrupted by any of those plans, especially with renovating Memorial, because if you have to move students out of the district, that's going to mean that suddenly this 2-2-2 plan is one of those twos is going to be missing. So I just think that we need to step back and really spend more time on this. I understand the desire for action because, as I said, this has been an issue since before I left this building. But the problem is that we can't have action for the sake of action. And in order to act, we need to figure out exactly what we're aiming first before we shoot for it. So, but that being said, thank you all so much for your dedication to this issue. And I hope that meaningful discussions can happen between this board, between members of the community, in order to find a solution that is best for every student, every stakeholder in this district. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have anyone online indicating they'd like to speak. If we have anyone else in person, we do have a few more minutes.
Hello, I'm Jensen, and my comments tonight are different from the ones that I've communicated with the board in previous weeks.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Jeff.
Hello, my name is Jensen. I'm a Durham resident, and I'd like to address agenda item B, the proposed grade level reconfiguration. As a parent with a kindergartner at John Lyman, my family will be directly affected by this proposal. However, my concerns extend beyond my own family situation and into the broader implications of this plan for our entire community. When I asked the board in a recent email how this proposed plan fits into the district's strategic plan, I was told, quote, the strategic plan for the district has yet to be fully completed and is currently still in the design phase, unquote. I want to stress the importance of having a long-term strategic plan in place for our district before making such significant changes to our elementary grade levels. Looking at our neighboring regionalized school district, RSD13, decisions about this district's short and long-term plans seem to be very well aligned with their district strategic plan. RSD13 should be following similar best practices such as these. We need to consider the short-term and long-term consequences of this reconfiguration, both for our students and our schools. Without a comprehensive and well-communicated long-term plan, we risk making hasty decisions that may not serve our students' best interests in the future. Our children's education is too important to be subjected to ad hoc changes without clear guidance and vision. I'm requesting the board address the questions and concerns raised by our community members. 2 petitions have been submitted to you, one with 158 signatures asking for a postponement of the vote on the reconfiguration plan, and another with 32 professional attestations against this plan. These petitions represent a significant portion of our community who feel these are crucial issues that need to be addressed before moving forward. The board has yet to provide specific data, research, or expert feedback on the proposed plan. The answers to concerns raised have been answered in a way that appears the board is unaware of the impact implications of their own proposed plan, and I am uncomfortable with a vote on a plan with so few details known. It is not good enough to say that the superintendent and his administration will figure it out once the plan is voted in. I want to remind the board of their responsibility to prepare a comprehensive plan under the Connecticut General Statute, Section 10-4. This includes short and long-term goals and objectives.
I implore you to take the time to thoroughly address the concerns outlined in these petitions and provide clear, well-reasoned responses. Our community deserves to have all of their questions answered and their concerns addressed before any final vote is taken on this proposal. I respectfully urge the school board to reconsider the proposed interim elementary grade level reconfiguration until a comprehensive long-term strategic plan is in place and all questions and concerns from our community has been addressed. Thank you.
Time for one more. We have one more.
If I make mine short, can you go through?
Power through it.
My name is Nick Angelo. I'm a resident of Rockfall and a previous student of Regional District 13. Just wanted to voice my opposition for the interim plan. I'm going to keep it short. I think it's been moved through very hastily with not a lot of background investigation as to how this is going to impact our students. And I think that we should really be doing a lot more of the information looking into it prior to the vote, as well as having an end goal in mind before proposing a temporary fix for how to get to the end goal. So, and as per my shirt, just want to give a shout out to John Lyman. I went there and I think they are doing a great job. I have a first grader and John Lyman, so what's my support? Thank you.
My name is Brian Hopper. I live in Middlefield. I have 2 kids at John Lyman, so Regional School District 13. I just wanted to come and convey my concern of the reconfiguration as well. I directly will be impacted, and so will my kids. And I can't say it any more elegantly than I see the folks that said here. You know, I'm concerned and it feels a little rushed. And I just ask that we slow down on a vote. Not opposed to the vote, but at least slow down to the point that we can ask more questions, evaluate really the feedback and understand it a little bit more fully before we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming for public comment tonight. More than welcome to stay through the rest of the meeting. We're going to move on to number 5, approval of minutes. A, Board of Education special meeting, August 9th, 2023. Does everyone have a chance to take a look at those? I know I've looked at them many times in the past week. I did not see any changes, corrections, or deletions. So I will, if anyone doesn't have any, I'll take a motion to approve them as written.
So vote. Second.
Moved by Jamie, second by John. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. B, Board of Education special work session, August 29th, 2023. I did not see any changes to this one. Other than what was fixed at the beginning. So I'll take a motion to approve if there's no changes. By Amanda. Second by Dr. Darcy. Emily. All those in favor?
Aye. Abstain.
Jamie abstains. Okay, thank you. Number 6, superintendent's report. I will hand over to Dr. Shook for the start of school year update.
Yes, thank you. I don't need the screen. It's still there, but fine. I appreciate everyone coming out tonight, and I, in preparing these remarks, there came to the conclusion that most of you did not come here and listen to me say anything. But bear with me for a couple, 3 minutes. This is my segment of the meeting, and we'll soon get to the part of the meeting I think we came for. Because I want to say that I think we had a really good opening to the school year, and I haven't been able to say that every year. My 15th year as a superintendent, we'd like that things would always go as smoothly as they did this year, and that is great credit to a lot of the people in this room, whether you are board member, staff member, parent. We were ready this year and it was awesome. That doesn't mean it was perfect and we're working through the bugs, but really happy with the way things went. And if you wanted a little bit more about my message, I don't know if anyone reads it, but Town Times on September 1st, they give me like 750 words. And I put a lot of what I would normally said into that article. So I would welcome you to do that. I would say we had something to deal with this year that we haven't typically dealt with. And that is unseasonably warm conditions last week. And so that just did cause us to move some things inside that we would normally like to do outside, like recess. Some of our sports have been impacted, again, not just here, but across the state and the region. But I am proud that even though we have aging buildings, the air conditioning worked. It's gonna fail, it's gonna fail. It's 90 plus and high humidity. And when I went to my superintendent's regional meeting last week, I looked around the room. We were one of the only districts there that wasn't doing early releases. And I you know, you do those if you have to, and I'm not faulting any of them, but getting started in a new school routine is hard enough for our children and for our families and for our working families. And I'm really happy we didn't have to do those early releases. This is my way of asking for grace if we have to do some of these when it snows. Okay. Also goes without saying in this room, but we're prepping for the Durham Fair as a community. Our schools will be very involved next week, so I hope that you have an opportunity to come out and see all the great things that our children are doing and showcasing to even more of the community, as I understand, because the main stage is back. They're expecting much higher numbers than what we've had since COVID. So please do that. And then I'll jump into other updates, and this will be very quick. Kim's going to talk about this in her report as well, but we do have a new system, a new visitor login system called the Raptor system. It's going to screen visitors for IDs. We've already got it up and running on this campus at the high school, and it seems to be working well, but it's going to check for things like sex offender registry and lots of things that we would want to be checked. And we'll also kind of streamline the printing of badges. It'll take people's pictures. I have a parent score. It's going to go out tomorrow. It's going to give all the details to all the families, all the parents, all the employees about what's happening there. And we've also asked our principals to put this in their Friday updates starting next week and every week, probably until it starts and thereafter. So we're asking everyone's patience. You do have to bring your ID. And so you may have to go back to your car if you forget it. We apologize in advance, but we're not going to apologize for the safety and well-being of our children. And that's it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Doug. Okay, staff reports, director of finance report. Pam.
Yes. So for the month of September, August, I apologize, for the month of August, our general fund is 9.26% expended and 94% encumbered. We've received 21% of our budgeted revenue so far. To just expand a little bit further on the Raptor system, we are having a go live date of October 2nd. We have been using it at the high school for students arriving late rather than signing in and getting a pass. They're able to scan their ID and get their pass from there. And then the next step was to bring it to all the students, but then also for the parents, the visitors. Not only does that help with running the parental pickup authorization in Power School and the sex offender database, but it also helps us with family reunification if anything should happen in emergency. And you know, it helps us with accountability, not only for students, but for staff members in the building as well and visitors. So again, probably sorry, going to have to send you back to your car a couple times, but that is for the kids' safety. If you're bringing a lunch, you just drop it off. You don't have to worry about that. It's like you're actually coming into the building. We've had some parent feedback about long bus routes this year, and I don't disagree. We had with the driver shortage, we had doubled a bus last year. So DACO scheduled our routes with that number of buses, 16 instead of 17. But we're finding that that's probably not the best way, that we might need to go to another bus, and we're looking at that. The bus rides, we are trying to keep to 45 minutes or less, but what we're finding, especially when it happens in the morning, but it's also happening in the afternoon, is that the high school run is backing everybody else up. So the high school run in the afternoon runs a little bit late or a little bit long. They're getting to Memorial late, which means they're getting to Brewster late, which means the kids are getting home later. So we are looking at that. We kind of went route by route. We're looking at all that, and we may end up having that another bus, which is not an awful thing. We budgeted for it, it's in there, but it will be something that we will not have a savings on. School reconfiguration options. QA&M architects, Rusty and Carson, are going to be meeting with the administrators on 9/19 and go over the educational merits of the filtered down options. And after that, the BOE and the building committee will schedule another joint work session to talk about those specific items.
And that's like the 4.5. That we
The
pared
4.5,
down.
yeah.
We say that, we say that to make John.
Audits are independent audit that we have every year. The field work was done in August. They were here for almost a week. And they'll be back out in October to finish that up. And that's just our standard routine audit we have every year. We had athletic trainer. I had put out some information that I think was the last meeting that Select Physical Therapy canceled our contract with us because they just didn't have the staff members. So I put out another RFP. I had Todd, the athletic director, call different firms and providers to see if they were interested in applying, submitting a bid, and we got 0 responses. So Select covered us through September 8th. And we are now working with another vendor on the short term. And we're going to need to come up with a long-term solution, but for now we're getting our games covered, not so much our practices. And Todd has worked very, very hard on finding an athletic trainer, and we are actually not unique in not having one.
I was just gonna ask that. Did we
Many
see that other
districts.
districts? Yeah.
Okay, the HVAC grant that I applied for last year that we were not approved has reopened. So I'm applying for round 2. I have all the paperwork from it, so it's easy for me to just re-enter it. It is a matching grant, and it's to reimburse the memorial mechanicals. So it would just be, that's money we've already expended. So that would be a reimbursement. But we would get probably what our state construction rate is, which it's about 52%. But then that has further ramifications on a renovate or new for memorial, because that's where the work was done. So if we were awarded that grant, we'd have to discuss how that would then play out. We would need to keep that equipment for 20 years. Is there a waiver? So there'd be more to discuss. I just didn't want that opportunity to go by. Okay, and I think that is it that I have for them.
Kim,
Sorry.
is there any options for a trainer other than somebody licensed as a trainer, like for example, a doctor would be president we could contract with on a game by game basis or something like that?
So I'll have to ask Todd that. He's really been doing the legwork on trying to find a candidate. Probably.
Saturday, there was great demand for a trainer with a lot of injuries and a lot of heat problems.
Yeah, we did have the trainer on
I
Saturday.
know.
Yeah.
He was, it seemed that sometimes, we have local doctors that are attend because of their children go here. It might be good to have a contract with some, if they can meet the requirements for a trainer.
I'll pass it on to Todd. Okay.
I have a Raptor question. Just in general, but down source, no. You said that the high school students can use, that they check in on their own with their ID. How does Raptor then handle a excused versus unexcused?
That would be intervention by the front office.
Okay, so it goes through a human filter after it gets. Because I don't want pterodactyls making those kinds of decisions. No, my bad.
Saying they would never check on the schools.
I don't know. It could be the opposite. They got a soft heart, those pterodactyls. I'm just.
Does anyone have anything else for Kim? Thanks, Kim. Oh, thanks, Kim. We appreciate it. All right, 8, new business. A, vote to establish June 12th, 2024 as the high school graduation date. Doug, you want to speak on this?
Sure. We did this last year and we appreciated it. I think it was around 2018 or 2019 that the state changed the rules, which I think was a good change, and permits boards through vote, as we're asking you to do tonight, to actually establish what the calendar says is the graduation date as the graduation date. And the reason why that needs to be done is that it would allow kind of a one-time override of the number of days required for attendance for our seniors. And the reason we believe it's a good idea is that it allows a lot of our staff in terms of planning and also for families and the seniors themselves to just have some stability in this really, really important event for them and for our district. And so in making this vote, what you'll essentially be saying is if we got X number of snow days, we could have a scenario where everyone pre-K through 11 would still be attending school even past the graduation date, but our seniors could go ahead and graduate, have their ceremony, and we kind of waive those extra days. And I think this is a great idea, and I hope you do too. But certainly I can answer any questions you have around that.
I know, having been on the committee too, it's really helpful for project graduation because then they can lock in that date and not have to worry about it being moved. So they kind of wait anxiously to hear the final date there.
You pick a date where it can be outside.
Right? No, I think we've heard a lot of feedback that it's been great for parents, for family members to be able to fly in and schedule flights early when they're cheaper as opposed to waiting until May, around May. So I think that's great. I do want to mention, I know we're talking kind of off the calendar, but we should put on the agenda when we talk about the calendar, talking about the start of school on Monday. I've had a lot of complaints about it, and it would be good for all of us to go through it and have a discussion about it. I know there's benefits and drawbacks to it, but if we could do that when we put the calendar together, that'd be great.
That's what you said, what we do.
Usually the fall, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Like
it was in
late fall.
November last year.
About that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I will take a motion to establish the June 12th, 2024 as the high school, Coggins-Chog High School graduation date.
I make a motion to establish June 12th, 2024 as high school graduation date.
Jason,
I'll second that.
second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, new business 8B, discussion and possible vote on the interim elementary grade level configurations effective 2024-2025 school year. Before we make a motion on this, in respect for discussion, Doug, I'd like for you to give an overview on how this normally happens, in respect to the board giving direction to the administration. There's been a lot of feedback on this topic that we don't have every ounce of information. We don't know how things are going to happen. So, 16, how many years? 16 years of superintendent work.
My 15th,
15.
yeah,
So if
okay.
you could just,
Yeah,
clarify that.
yeah, and so just to clarify, because some people have been with us through this whole process and some are joining more late. In the July meeting, the board had asked me to go back to the team and talk about the feasibility and practicality of this interim plan, and so we did talk about that in July, and I will reaffirm the statement that I made last month. It is doable, it is practical. All of us, especially Kim, gave input as to the budget impact, and that impact is negligible at this point. And there's really not a lot that would change that. I don't want to speak for Kim, but because our teachers would follow our children in a plan like this, we wouldn't see any need for an increase or a decrease in staffing. That part would be stable, and that's the lion's share of our budget. It's not to say there'd be no cost, and we talked about, we might need some nominal overtime for custodians to move folks around, but nothing that would really impact the budget in a significant way. That's not to say that we're 100% saying this is what we should or shouldn't do. It's not what we were asked to do. What we were asked to do is, can we do it? And can we do it well? And one of my answers was, the sooner we can be told, especially ahead of the budget season, the more we could plan for this. I would say, Lindsay referenced my years in education. It hasn't happened to me, but I have known colleagues where a decision like this was made in May, June, or July to be implemented in August or September, and those districts got it done too. I just think whether you think this should happen or whether you think it shouldn't happen, hopefully we can all agree being able to adequately plan for it would be important. And so the way this would typically happen in my experience is that a board would make a vote, whether it's tonight or sometime in the future, to make this change. And then our leadership team would immediately go upon the task of figuring out exactly how we were going to make this transition. And we haven't done that yet. There have been some folks that have said maybe we should have done that yet. That maybe that's fair criticism. In the world where I operate, I would not want to put staff through those exercises when their time could be better spent. If this is something we might not even do, but I'll stand behind the fact that we can do it and we can do it well. And we've talked as a leadership team about, you know, the major points of what would have to happen. And I can get into those tonight if you want to, or not. So that, again, it's at the board's discretion. Want me to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay, I mean, I think on its surface, one of the first things we would need to do is communicate to people. We have a lot of people that are here and a lot of people watching. There are going to be people out there that aren't paying attention to this at all, whether they are parents, whether they are employees. So our first step probably tonight or whenever a vote would take place would be to send something out with the basic information. This was voted upon, this is going to happen. So we would take that on straight away. Immediately in the aftermath of that, there are going to be a lot of questions from folks. If you happen to be a teacher at Memorial, at Lyman, at Brewster, on a particular grade level that you can see what's being proposed, you would know that that's going to impact your employment for next year, not with the district. Your employment with the district is not tied to that, but in terms of the location of where you would be. So we're not going to be able to say tomorrow, or probably in the next week or so, exactly how that's going to work. But Kevin knows, because we've talked about that, that people are going to be anxious and nervous, similar to a year ago when we had to cut positions from our budget and we had people that were nervous and anxious, and we worked as quickly as we could to come up with a process for notifying folks and also for asking folks things like, if you really don't want to switch schools, would you be willing, if there was an availability, to stay at your school and maybe change your assignment to a different grade level? You know, elementary teachers in general are certified K6, I believe. And so not that you want to teach another grade level, but if that was important, we would want to solicit those preferences from folks. We have some folks that might be dual certified in elementary ed and special education. If that was something that was important to them, we would want to get to our employees and help them understand that we couldn't promise anything. But as we do every year, we always want to entertain what are people's preferences, where would they like to be. So I think that would be one of the big first steps. We also would need to go to each of our principals at those 3 schools. Again, we haven't asked them to do this yet, but to say, under this proposed configuration, how would you lay out your classrooms? Would you just stick with what you have and modify around? Would you come up with the new configuration? So there may be even movement, even for people under this plan who are not changing schools and are not changing grade levels. They might be changing classrooms. Again, we will try to minimize that impact, but that might need to happen because this is our chance to look at, you know, if Memorial's just going to be 4th and 5th, where does it make more sense, since we'll be adding 4th graders into that equation, to give all the services in general ed, in special ed, related arts to a certain extent are already kind of predetermined by the way the rooms are laid out. Then there's the whole issue of scheduling and what does that schedule look like? But to use last year as an example, we decreased our related arts staff at the elementary school. So our board made that decision last year before every detail and nuance of that schedule had been completed. But our elementary principals told us it would work. They told the board that, they told me that, and once the decision was made, they made it work. To your question, Lindsay, and maybe I'm over answering and I apologize. I would not ask them to make a new related arts schedule if the board was not even going to support the decrease in related arts staff. And so I guess the way this typically works in my experience, again, people don't have to agree that it's the right way to do things, is that typically boards consider big decisions like this. They make them, or they don't make them, or they modify them, or whatever is happening tonight or in a future meeting. And once that happens, it's kind of like we're given our marching orders to go forward and do all that. We mentioned budget before. We start our budget planning in earnest around the November timeline with staff and then with the board in the early part of 2024. Knowing what grade levels are going to be at each school is an important input to that process. And that's why I said in last month that knowing what the decision would be important to know prior to that. You could still make the decision in March and we would make it work. It would just be not as smooth throughout the budget planning process. And I think anything that we can do when it's a major transition, we can do better with, I guess I'd call it a longer runway. If you think of like the airplane analogy. And we scramble to do things with less time if we have to. So I'll stop there. But if you had specific questions or if other board members did, I can answer or other staff could answer.
All right, and we can look at that under discussion. I just want to give you that chance before we got into a motion and discussion on it. So for the purpose of discussion, I will take a motion. Sorry, in here it's not there. A motion to approve the interim elementary grade level configuration effective 2024-2025 school year. At Brewster pre-K1, Lyman grades 2 through 3, Memorial grades 4 through 5. Okay, so I'll make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Lucy, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Linda. Okay, discussion. So we heard a lot about the how, and I think it's important that we talk about where we've gotten and you know, for lack of better words, the why. So when you talk about this interim configuration, I know there's a lot of hesitation on it. There's a lot of confusion, and I understand that. If you look back over the past year and a half, we've had multiple conversations about school choice. There's been even months where we couldn't fit it back on the schedule to talk again about it. But it's been on our minds, but you know, for a year and a half now. There's been some criticism that this configuration only was brought up in July, and it wasn't. We've been talking about school choice since then. But most recently in depth on this situation was actually from the May 10th meeting. A lot of us went there. I know that I sent you guys those minutes to look at. We talked about the long term, but we also talked about the short term. And then in June, it was on the schedule for the agenda, but we couldn't get to it. So that is why it ended up on the July 5th meeting. The July 5th meeting, that motion was made in order to get feedback from the administration. We felt it important not to make that motion without first talking to the administration to say, listen, is this feasible? Is this something we can do? Is it something that the administration can support? Then we waited until the next meeting where we yet again did not vote on it because it wasn't on the agenda. And we thought it'd be best to make sure that it was publicly noticed at our next meeting, which is where we are today. I know we all have some different comments that we want to make on this, and I will refer to that in 1 second, but I wanted to read something from the state statutes that actually came from CAVE this week. Board of Education member is a state official functioning at a local level. Duties of the Board of Education, A, CGS 10-220. Each local or regional Board of Education shall maintain a good public elementary and secondary schools. Implement the educational interests of the state as defined in section 10-4A and provide such other educational activities as in its judgment that will best serve the interests of the school district. So for purposes of section 10-4, The educational interests of the state shall include, but are not limited to, the concerns of the state. 1, that each child shall have, for the period prescribed in the general statutes, equal opportunity to receive a suitable program of educational experiences. Each school district shall finance at a reasonable level, at least equal to the minimum budget requirement, pursuant to the provisions of section 10-262J. 3, in order to reduce racial, ethnic, and economic isolation, each school district shall provide educational opportunities for students to interact and learn from teachers and people of other races, ethnic, and economic backgrounds, and may provide such opportunities for students from other communities. And 4, that the mandates in the general statutes pertaining to education within the jurisdiction of the State Board of Education be implemented. When I spoke with Cave and we went through this, they said this was more than curriculum. That we, as a Board of Education, have a duty to not only the curriculum, but to the educational experiences. And yes, it is muddled in different things. But if we can align by grade in the hopes of working towards a K-5 and align our educational experiences along with getting all of our kids along grade levels, I believe it's the best option for us to do. And I'll leave it that with what I've discussed. I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Darcy because she's got some data that she would like to discuss.
Thank you. Never give a professor data research and an audience. So I'm going to try and be mostly concise within the confines of making sure that I'm clear. Number one thing I want to mention is, Mark Twain, our Connecticutian in chief, you said, there's 3 kinds of lies, damn lies, and statistics. And the same thing can be said of research. I am very wary of the weaponization of some of the research that has come up. And as a researcher, I did some deep diving and rabbit holing. And because it's already been published on multiple social media places, people are reading, and some people are under the impression that there is irrefutable evidence that multiple transitions are deleterious to students' psychological, emotional, academic well-being. And quite frankly, that is not what the research shows. Nor does the research show that transitions are good for students, right? There's no research that is applicable to our situation. So number one, and so I just kind of talked a little bit about what I did. Anything older than 20 years is totally immaterial, different world. I would say that none of the research is relevant because of COVID, that all of the studies that were done on students that lived in a totally different world. But I think that there are things to be learned from the research that has happened. However, again, there's a danger in looking at case studies and then extrapolating that evidence or findings out beyond the case that it was done in. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But so again, I eliminated anything that was over 20 years old. I eliminated anything that was not peer reviewed. There were like 3 series of articles that were provided to us. And I had time to do almost all of them. And so what I did though, is a lot of them were literature reviews, which is basically a research paper of previous studies. That's not research. That's not evidence. It's taking other people's evidence and restating it. So you can say, if there are 100 lit reviews that cite evidence that the sky is blue. But when you do the back research into the studies that were quoted, you may find that there's only one study that actually shows that. So what I did is I went into the articles that were provided to us, and rather than reading their findings, I looked at their citations and I went back and I read the actual studies that were being referenced. Because if you put in a literature review, it's been through at least 2 human filters, and people pick and choose what they're going to put in, whether it supports their argument or does not. So number one, the research on the impact of transitions has focused on either, and not all, predominantly, has focused on the transitions from elementary to secondary or from middle to high. Or they focus on individual students. They're looking at the negative impact that a student, and somebody talked about military families, and that is a huge sample of research that has been done. But those were talking about individual students who have gone through multiple transitions, which is totally irrelevant to what we are talking about right now, which is we are talking about taking groups of students and having them move. One of the most significant, this is from the first compilation of research that we got, the most amazing to me, because I wouldn't have found this had it not been provided to us in opposition to the movement, but specifically states, and this is a quote from the study, that the lowest dropout rates were in school districts that were organized K-6 and 7-12 schools and one transition in 7th grade. That's obviously not what we're talking about. However, put a small group of kids together when they are in kindergarten and keep them together. That social structure and bonding is far more important than we thought. In other words, the negative impact in those transitions is not moving from building to building, it's moving from peer group to peer group. I'll come back to that in a second. The citations from the petition. The studies that were cited in here are, in my opinion, fairly disingenuous representations of what the actual studies show. So I was running out of time this afternoon, not gonna lie. So what I did, I got to the one, oh my God, it's 38 pages. So what I did is I just searched for the term. I was like, okay, is this going to be relevant? Let's go find out. And I jumped in and I just searched within the document transition. The word transition never showed up. I'm like, okay, maybe it's a semantics thing. I put in change, never showed up. The article had nothing to do with transition for whether it be an individual or a grade level. So again, that particular study, totally irrelevant to our situation. The individual differences in behavioral, this was a good one because it actually talked about students who were identified as highly aggressive and then followed the impact of transitioning on this group of diagnosed behaviorally disordered students and the impact of transitions on them. Not relevant to what we're talking about. No, that was the transition does not appear. The peer experience of anxious and so here's another one, the peer experiences of anxious and socially withdrawn youths, the word transition does not appear. The most relevant, in my opinion, study was really interesting. Thank you. School transitions and students' achievement in the 5th grade. And that does, it's actually fairly relevant because it's talking about groups of students and their transition and how a transition, multiple transitions prior to grade 5 actually impact academic achievement. And they say quite clearly, which if you skimmed it would be easy to misinterpret because they kind of went in with the idea that it's going to show that it has a negative effect. And so they state that going in, that clearly these transitions are going to have a negative effect. And there's all kinds of statistics and numbers and stuff in there. But what it actually showed was that there was negligible differences in mathematics and reading. And there was also, however, a significant positive average treatment effect on science scores. And the other piece that this really talks about is there's too many other factors. There's too many other societal, individual, biological, genetic, and who knows, probably economic factors to say the transitions have an impact one way or another. And then I had a chance to just kind of glean from what we were provided with today. Again, some it's older than 20 years old, some was not peer reviewed. One of them, interestingly, took place in Greece, which I'm not downplaying it, but I'm just questioning the relevancy. But the first 3 studies are, again, looking at individual students and the impact of transition on those individual students. It is not the case of asking a peer group of students to move from one location to another. And then finally, the other articles on here really deal with COVID and the impact COVID has had on our kids, which obviously we have yet to truly see, but it doesn't talk about whether those issues are exacerbated or not by transition. We're too close to the pandemic to know that. So the only findings that cross these studies is that we need to have a plan. Right, there needs to be a very clear transition plan for teachers, for families, for kids. And I think that when we look at it and we look at the SRBI model where we looked at, someone said how kids are so resilient, and I agree with that. And so 80% of the children, this is not going to be an issue. 80% of the children is just, oh, I'm doing this today, and they're going to go do it. 15% are going to need more intensive support. And 5% are going to need some serious intensive support. Maybe it means that for some of those students, and probably a lot of them have IEPs, that their caseworker loops with them. We do a summer program so that we build community among the students who are going to be coming together for the first time. Because again, it's the peer group that's important, not the brick and mortar. So there are a lot of creative ways that I'm sure our leaders will find to support teachers, students, and families. And then my last comments outside of the research, because I can very easily jump into the over-intellectualization of this, clearly. What has been missing, and I think it's because we all followed, myself included. I think I lost sight of, because I just got, really, I get to play with the research. Is that, and so I think a lot of us kind of followed down the rabbit hole. And lies, damn lies, and statistics, we can make those things say anything we want them to, myself included, right? I didn't find anything that supports transitions. I just attacked what was provided to me. But real talk, we need to hear, not from your head, but from your heart. Right? People are scared. Parents are scared. What's going to happen to my kid? But to try and take it outside of where it really is in your heart and put it into this intellectualization that the research shows. And I fell into it. So I am torn as we continue here. I'm really torn, because were we to make the decision based on the arguments made today, or, from keyboard warriors on social media, it's unconvincing to oppose. But that's not what's really important, right? It's community. We just said it's peer group for the kids, it's community for us. So I am very torn, because I want to hear and I want to know more about the fears, how people will fear it will impact their community, our community, rather than looking at, look, this scholar said this or the other thing. So why I am torn is I want to vote as soon as possible to give Doug and his team as much time as possible to do the transitions. They're going to be best for our kids and our community. But I think we all kind of got waylaid from what's really important, which is what's happening in our hearts. And so we didn't get to hear a lot of that. So that's my real talk for tonight, is that that is much more important, because again, the numbers and the research can say whatever we want it to say. But I'm more concerned about the fear, not that the board doesn't value research, which clearly we do, but rather we care more about the heart and soul of our kids in our community. That's all. Thank you.
And I want to echo a lot of what Dr. Darcy just said. And I hear what she says about our hearts, and I hope that if we do vote on this tonight, it does pass. I hope that those heartfelt, honest opinions come to the administration. And I hope they're able to work through each and every one of those issues. There's so many things we can do, from community conversations to opening up a even a thought exchange on what the administration can do to ease the transitions. There's many things we can do. And I'm sure that they will seek as much input from the public as possible. Is there any other discussion on this currently? Bob?
I think the community is so torn by this. I've been through another event where the community got torn 5 or 6 years ago. I think the way to resolve it is to have some kind of community forum where we can answer questions, where we have experts who can say what the cost is going to be, what the schedule is going to be, where the kids are going to go, how are we going to handle this stuff. And I think we need more time to bring that community into at least acceptable decision or consensus decision. I don't think that we're at a point where moving ahead on this is gonna hurt our long-term plan because we haven't put it out there yet. We haven't come to the conclusion of it. And in our discussion on the long-term plan, we had looked at characteristics that we were trying to define how we were going to select one of those. In that characteristics, that we had issues related to the economics, the building impacts, the educational experience. How are those fitting in, and how does this interim plan fit? We all know that the long-term plan is expensive. I think it's ultimately affordable, but it's expensive. And we need to know how that will work. And I think people are concerned that if this goes through, this will be the final plan rather than the interim plan. We've had, I've tried to, in the last 5 years, we've tried to build community support for the closure alignment. It didn't work. We ended up having support at a level, but when we went to change regional plan, it was not approved. And we went to say, okay, now we need to fix alignment, that wasn't approved. So we're not in a situation, I think, as a board to move forward on something that gets the community angry. And at the same time say, let's come back and support this long-term plan, which is more complicated and expends a lot of money. So I think we need some time to get the community together in some kind of forum where we could have people who answer questions and talk about their heart, talk about their fear, talk about what they think is a good plan and how would they would like, the long-term plan to go. But we're not there in data on either one of those. We may be shortly as we're working on the economics and we cut it down before. We're looking at the budget impacts and, we'll probably have some data pretty soon that will show us whether or not these long-term plans are affordable and what they do. But I think we need to spend some time with our community on this.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Dr. Darcy, thank you for your scientific and always entertaining report. Very much appreciated.
Albeit long-winded.
Doug, I do appreciate your zeal for having time to plan. As we know, it's a huge transition and it's important. It's disruptive, but I'm full confidence that our staff are really highly qualified administrators and building level, our teachers know what to do and we need to give them the proper time. This is coming from a teacher who 3 days before school was said, oh, room assignments are changing. I teach in the Hartford School District. Teachers don't last long there. We have teachers that are committed to our district, and I'm quite sure that's not going to change. Okay, but to get rid of 20 years of crap in another classroom and move it in and have an intentionally inviting thing, it's a 1 day at a time thing. That's great. However, you may or may not know, I was born here. I've been in the district since the district was formed. And we are light years ahead of decision-making than it was. We were experiencing a time of pretty rapid growth. Decisions were made, as Doug alluded to earlier, in some districts in July. And I had to look at my school pictures from kindergarten and first and second and third and fourth, just to put a vivid picture in my mind of where was I. And yeah, it was a yearly transition.
And yes, I perhaps am in that 80%. And I'm quite confident we have the support structure to really take care of the 15 and 5% that Linda, you, my numbers right? Your scientific. Yeah, I was perhaps in that 80% and it was okay. In fact, it was exciting. It was great. And I'd like to just really affirm that our children are served best, I think, when we don't look at school as the do all and end all. We are an entire community with so much more to offer than school. School is an important part. But if you've yet to actually look around you and see what we have to offer besides school, and it's all school intertwined, we are such an incredible community, and I invite you to see it and experience it and become part of it. We are blessed to have school communities, those parent groups, absolutely. Perhaps it wasn't as robust in the old days, but that is lovely. And I don't see that ever waning. Yes, it might have to move from school to school on a regular basis. But it's clear in my mind that this is the right thing to do. You know, again, we have the support structures in place. I think it is really the best thing for our kids, and just put the trust in our administrators, maintenance, facility, everything together. We know how to get the job done, and they won't have to deal with 3 days before. Oh, by the way, you're here. So I think it's the right thing to do.
And I would totally agree with you too, Damien. I appreciate everyone coming out and they're voicing their concern. But what I keep going back to, and thank you, Mr. Quick, for coming, because I go back to the 95 signatures that he also has, 95 plus, of people who didn't come here, who are so uncomfortable in these two towns to come out to speak. That I think, as someone else had mentioned, to me, that's the real decision maker for me, because that just represents the huge divide that this obviously has created and continues to create. And I think we have talked about it. It's been well discussed. It's not going to make everyone happy. Nothing will. Nothing, closing down corn didn't make a whole population of kids happy and families, but we did it. And the contemporary side, as it was known, has made a lot of transitions. And I keep listening to a lot of the research that was presented to us. And I keep wondering, well, what about all the other kids in this district that have been doing this for years? Not kids at Lyman. Lyman has not been affected. And I'm speaking from my own 3 older children who are now in college, who have gone through these transitions. So I feel that we've talked about it enough. I feel like the divide has been long enough. And I think that the plan ultimately of a K-5 school, as Ms. Ettinger said, is where we want to be. However, we don't know yet how long that's going to be. It is where we want to be. But in the interim, to me, this is what this district needs.
I think to kind of get on to what you said before when you were talking about some of the transitions you thought was exciting. I think a lot of that, how it's portrayed to children, also is going to affect how they're going to feel when these changes are made. Sure, you're going to have some children who are going to be not happy with changes. Adults don't even like changes. But if it's presented as something exciting, something new, something different, something to look forward to, then, the children will pick up on that. Bob, you had mentioned, you're talking about having communities come together and talk about this. I'm assuming you're thinking before we make a decision, but it's a lot of work to go through and digest all the input, make all these decisions, how it's going to happen, and then it doesn't get voted on. So to me, it makes sense to vote on it, and I'm in favor of it, to vote on it. And I know that the administrators are going to make it a priority to get to the parents to find out what their concerns are and see how in the process of making this move, they're going to address those concerns as much as possible. That would be the proper place to go through all that. I mean, we're not gonna sit here after getting, I don't know how many emails we received, a whole bunch of them, and I have a paper here with a bunch of names, a lot of names, a lot of, those are the ones I read. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of comments tonight as well. So, I just want to say that it was interesting to find out about the state statute. I mean, we need to look at this from another angle. The state statute saying that the Board of Education is charged with ensuring that students receive equitable experiences is critical, and this falls right into the issue that came up with the field trips, and that's not the only piece. And I feel that bringing students in grades K-4 together ensures that this equitable experiences are going to happen for all the grade levels. Also, the board has been strongly committed since 2019 to the district having one education program, a program that incorporates a number of the practices in the ID program. And it kind of pains me so to hear some people still talk about the two programs. There are not two programs, there should not be two programs. There might be different climates in the school, but perhaps we could have done more to make sure that it was conveyed that there is only one program. So the decision that we're talking about would also support the board's recent vote to eliminate the school choice. Let me go back. In terms of the programming, if we put all the students together, now that's going to ensure that they are all going to get one program. The decision also supports the board's recent vote to eliminate school choice, since all the students in the same grade level will attend the same school. Having all the students in the same grade levels together enhances the teaching learning process, because all the teachers of the same grade level then have the opportunity to collaborate, share data, plan instruction, and develop unified strategies to address issues that arise. And this fly is having fun here. All the support staff and resources for a grade level will be together in the same building. This temporary grade level reconfiguration also allows for the opportunity for administrators and staff to develop unique and creative activities and opportunities to bring the students together for all types of activities. When I was chair, my goal was to have a decision made and presented to the community for what we were going to be doing in the long term. I was hoping to have it done by June of this year. We had the information for the K-5, and it kind of took the wind out of our sails when we found out the cost. But that cost, it doesn't reflect savings from closing schools, savings from staffing. So, and savings from not having to do renovations to other schools, updates to other schools. We didn't have that figure. We just saw this one number, which was quoted tonight, and it kind of, made us stop. And so we turned around and we've gotten another engineer to take a look at it, and we've really come a long way. And I'm gonna hope that by the end of this year, we will be able to present something to the community, some options to the community. And I'm really hoping that this interim plan it should be very temporary, and that hopefully within the next couple of years, 2-3 years, we will have something decided. We've been at this for almost 10 years, and we need to just kind of like get off the pot and get it done, get something done. One way or the other, we have to get this done. It's just been out there for way too long, and I think it's been detrimental not only to the community, but also to the students and the staff. So anyway. I think too, just to dovetail off of what Lucy said, and I think goes off the interim just to sleep it, so bear with me. But when people use that big figure, that number, and then they say we're not guaranteed state reimbursement. You're not guaranteed guaranteed 100%. I haven't seen anywhere that it hasn't happened in the amount that we have asked, that has been asked. I think that's a formality put in there for, if Kim wants to
I
speak
can
to
speak
that.
to that. What's not guaranteed is if they're gonna fund it every year, but if you have a project approved, that is a commitment. So you don't move forward until you have that approval and then that reimbursement is committed.
Right. And I think that's important. You know, if this is something we vote in favor of tonight, I'd like to see us put an agenda item monthly for an update on where they are with plans for the transition. It would give not only us a really good input on what's going on, but the community as well. I don't know if anyone else.
I
Mariah?
wanted to say, something that
I
I
can
just,
speak up. It's hard for them here.
I haven't heard much about the feedback that we've gotten from the teachers regarding this. I don't know if that was something that anyone was concerned about, because if they have questions and anxieties that are brewing about this, I would kind of like to be able to hear those and be able to address those, because we don't want teachers to leave the district that are good, they're valuable to us.
I don't think that the administration would have told us that they support the plan if they thought that the teachers thought it was detrimental.
I was wondering if it was stuff we spoke to the teachers.
We did
and
receive
everything.
some comments about what's the plan for transition, who's gonna move the stuff. So, you know, again, we have more time to
Teachers wanna
plan.
know
I think
kind of
that
stuff. Yeah.
alleviates itself,
When-
and you
yeah.
can figure out your room utilization and all
Like
that.
when we met with the
So it
admin.
won't
did
be
you
3
meet with
days
some
before school.
teachers or anything
We,
like that?
we did not. This all happened over the summer. Teachers not on contract in the summer. What I can tell you, based on my experience, is that any change of this magnitude for teaching staff is going to cause some anxiety and some concern. The same would be true even with the long-term plan. We can all say, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to have a new school, new renovated school. And I don't want to just say teachers, for any staff who have put their heart and soul into supporting children in a building, and yes, it's just a building, but there is somewhat of a trauma that happens. In my experience, this even happens when you build a brand new school to replace an old school and everyone just gets up and moves. It's still, there are some people that still cling to, but wait a minute. I had my routine, I had my classroom, all of those things. So, you know, to answer the question, we didn't go out and survey the teachers. We didn't ask them, you know, their opinions on how this would impact them individually. But what I can tell you based on my experience is that this will be hard for many of them. Having said all that, they are committed to our children, and they are employees of the district. It's not a popular thing to do, but even in the time that I've been here, we have involuntarily transferred teachers from one campus to another, from one grade level to another. That's been hard for some of them. Kevin can speak to that. They all come to his office and he spends a lot of time trying to, I don't mean to make light of it, to counsel them and help them understand that we need them to do that. And so to answer your question again, just to reiterate, we didn't go out and survey the teachers. We didn't ask them. And quite frankly, there's a group of teachers in the district that, I'm not saying they don't care, but like if they're at Strong, if they're at Coggin, like this really isn't impacting them. And probably there are other staff who are already viewing this through the lens of they may not want to see it happen, but they're already looking at, does it appear that their particular job is one that would be targeted for moving? And again, I think you can look at what's been proposed and kind of see that, especially in the general ed realm. And so, yeah, that impact would definitely be there. And part of our job, and I guess this is my way of saying, knowing that that's going to be there, I would rather have more time than less to prepare our team to help them make that transition. But let me say something else regarding this, and this also applies to the long-term plan. And again, I've only been here 2.5 years. It seems like a little bit longer, but what I have heard over those 2.5 years, and even from people going back, is that the overall uncertainty about what is going to happen with our elementary buildings, open, closed, grade levels, I throw it all into the same big pot. And I would say not having a plan in many ways, or not knowing what's going to happen causes more anxiety in people than having a plan that they don't like. And again, Jen could speak, she's a psychologist. I mean, there's that fear of uncertainty. And so again, this is not my way of saying I think you need to vote tonight. If you do, we're gonna make it work. But in the next couple of months, at the very latest, is what we are asking. Again, we're not telling, you guys are the board. You do what you need to, but yes, it's going to be hard on some staff. And some longer, some more than others. If someone has been at a school for a long time, they're more invested personally, professionally, emotionally, and this would be a harder move. If we just hired somebody this year, I'm not saying that wouldn't be hard for them, but I don't view that personally through the same lens. And new people know that they don't have as much, longevity and maybe even standing in that regard. But it's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it.
I just wanted to ask, because I know
Yeah.
they're navigating the new curriculum as well, so
Yes,
that's obviously a
yes.
priority, and this whole transition to be into the plan would be a priority, so I just being in.
No,
in mind that we don't have
I think it's a
too
good
much.
question, and I'm really glad you brought up
Oh, good.
the new expeditionary learning program, because I share those concerns that they're starting anew and then we'll be asking them to move. On the flip side, I think when we're implementing a new program that has a lot of new elements, that ability for collaboration on a grade level is also an important factor, because we're dealing with those challenges right now, not being able to do it. And again, this is not a reason to do it or not to do it. I'm just trying to give you kind of a pros and cons list in my own head about how there are parts of this that I think are less than ideal. And there are other parts that are benefits. And again, I don't want to put any of our folks on the spot, but I think, if you are a principal, if you are an instructional coach, if you're a curriculum leader in general ed or special ed, the advantage of having an entire grade level together to be able to plan and execute, be in each other's classrooms and have that kind of community, which is why I think we all love the K-5 model.
Right.
So yeah, I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, and I get that.
And not to make light of it too, but teachers move all the time. I mean, I know the 10 years I taught at Brewster, I had 3 different classrooms. Like, you just get moved as the grade gets bigger and smaller, or they, change locations in the building. So I think teachers are used to that. They do adapt to it. And I would suspect, because there's some people out in the crowd and even here on the panel, that it would probably go just like it did when we closed Horn. I mean, we had U-Haul trucks, and those of us who were here for that transition, it ended. I mean, Deb's in the back. She was the one that, right? We had U-Haul trucks, and it was the end of the year, and everybody's stuff got packed up, and teachers were allotted that time. Other teachers, I was one of the ones that would help other teachers, to pack up also, and then it got moved to the other school, and then had time to unpack. So very much like when you move from a house.
Give me nightmares.
And I'll
It's not-
validate,
I know.
I'll validate
not
what you
ideal,
said, because every 2 years, when I first started teaching, every 2 years I was moved into a different room
Yeah.
in the same building. Every 2
Yeah,
years, I was
yeah.
packing up and moving. And then to culminate it all, I was moved to a different school in the district. So, teaching the same thing. So I was constantly moving.
I transitioned to post-secondary culinary school from Farmington, Hartford. We all got together one weekend, moving vans to a 7-story building, and it was exciting. It worked. Yeah, it wasn't easy, but we're going to have a lot more time to plan. I do want to ask Doug briefly. Again, the concern a lot of people have is the transition, let's say, from grade 2 to 3. Do you have the confidence that the grade 2 teachers will then be able to communicate effectively with individual student needs as they're moving to a new building at grade 3?
Well,
Or whatever grade transition
I
is.
do, and the reason I feel that way is we do that now. And I think it goes without saying, and again, I've talked to a number of parents out there as well. Again, this plan that's being discussed is not perfect. The configuration we have right now is not perfect. We have a situation now that I still can't explain to anyone who's not from here, whereby as great of a school as Lyman is, and it is, and people have said that, why do we have a plan where children only go to Memorial for 1 year? I can't explain that. It's not a criticism of board present or past, or administration present or past. But having said all that, we do that. And to the point about the 15% and the 5%, I don't mean to look down Jen's way when I say that, but For many children, transitions are hard. For many children, just going home for the summer and coming back is very difficult, or changing classrooms. And so within buildings, special attention is paid to that. But between and among buildings, a lot of time and effort and energy is spent trying to make those transitions better. It still won't be perfect for every child, for every family, for every situation, but I have complete confidence that our staff can do that. Now, do you want to add anything to that, or?
No.
I know we're trying to not say a whole lot here, but
I think we do, our children are transitions. Some of our children are transitioning often as it is. As Maura said. Our special ed students who go to ESY, or many of our students who receive remedial services over the summer, transition from a building for 4 weeks, different buildings. The kids are transitioning. Our kids transition, our teachers are doing the transition, work every year. So, you said it, we're doing that now. We're doing it now.
I think it's what's important to hear too, is it's been great to be able to sit down with Cabe and talk to Cabe, because there's so many perspectives on so many districts, from ones that are like ours to not. And for example, you guys remember Nick Caruso, who came here, and he was telling me a story when he was board chair for Bloomfield, that over the course of 5 to 6 years, they reconfigured the intermediate and middle school every single year for 5 years. And he's like, that wasn't ideal. They had to do it because of a declining and shifting enrollment, and there were a lot of factors that happened into it. And I asked him, I said, was it all right? And he said, we made it work because we had to make it work, and we identified ways to make it work. We're obviously not looking to ever do that, but I just think if we look from a perspective that what we have here is not every year. This won't be something that we change next year, probably the year after, but hoping for the following year, so that we can hopefully, I know where Yanina is, and she's here, but she eloquently very much said what I, as a parent, would have gotten up there and said today. Yanina and I were one of the two that we sat in this room and fought for the ID program and fought for Lyman. And my kids truly loved it. I truly love it. I love the program. I love going to that building. The best thing that we can do is bring the programs together. And I know we've no criticism of past and present, but it's kind of identify that one track. And I think along grade levels, I think it's the best way to start doing that and preparing for hopefully a K through 5, if not a fiscal way for us to stay along grade level. That's all I have left to say on it.
Well, I was going to say one thing I was thinking about to dovetail what Linda was saying about the effect is on the peer groups. When we vote, if it passes, and once the transition is made next year, when those first graders then move over to Lyman, they will be moving into a new peer group. However, the next group that moves up is already going to be moving in with a peer group that they've already been together with at Brewster. So it's only just that first year that there's some of that newness that they're going to experience. Otherwise, they're reconnecting with friends that they had before. So, I don't know if you understand, but yeah.
Okay, so I think Linda basically said it best. There's really 2 ways to look at it. For me, it's the business side, plain and simple. We trust our administration to do what's necessary. They don't really see an issue with it. We've always put full trust in them. Kim does a great job with finances. She doesn't think there's going to be much of any effect. Doug's on top of it. There's no use to me to waste time to do research for something that we're not going to do. Like he said, use the resources for the best spot at the time. I'd much rather see the kids getting a better education right now
because they're doing what they need to do, than focusing on something that we may vote on or may not 6 months down the road. So that's from the business side. So from the heart side, I went through Brewster, Corn, Memorial, just like you, all the traditions. I love the traditions. For me, it was about how my parents approached it, how they brought us, got excited for the open houses. Oh, this is gonna be my school next year. So once again, I was probably that 80%, but I'm sure Jen and her team can get the other 15 and 5% through everything good. So the other side, almost every public comment we heard was, my child's gonna be affected, my child's gonna be affected, my child's gonna be affected. My child is in kindergarten at Brewster. I will be having to transition, if this vote passes tonight, to Lyman in 2 years. My son was in pre-K4 last year. Half of his friends right now are at Lyman. He lost all of them. He asked me in the beginning of this year, am I gonna see them next year? No. So you already separated kids that were in a peer group. For what reason, when we're on one track? So. Really, that's all I got.
Just to piggyback that, I mean, we keep talking about all the, there's not enough information out there. I think this board has been very, we've asked for a lot of data. We've asked for a lot of research. We've asked for a lot of things in order for us to make this decision, right? I'll just, because everyone's done a phenomenal job and Doctor, you did a great job. I really appreciate that. But we have a fiscal responsibility. We have a lower enrollment now. We've been talking about years of our buildings just going, they're dilapidated. They're not where they need to be. In order for us to be successful, I truly believe that having three buildings and making them what they need to be is going to be the best course of action for our children moving forward. I'm not going to say any more than that. It is just that simple. I think our staff does a phenomenal job. I think we have awesome teachers. I think everyone just needs to really just think about the kids in the K through 5 and worrying about them working together and just long term, the amount of money that we're going to save, because I think everyone loses focus on that, is the fact that, we see this big number initially, and we don't see what it actually saves us 10 years down the road. Not only to mention that it also is going to be more efficient for us. It's a better school. Not only that, we're going to be able to spend more money strong and more money here, which is vitally important as well moving forward. We keep 5 schools open. I'm just going to speak on that end of it. I don't think we're going to be successful in anything. Those buildings are going to get worse. And then we're just, we're not moving forward as we should. That's all I got to say.
I'll make a very quick comment. I have a kindergarten student who's in class with Jason's son and a 5th grade student. And when choosing between Brewster and Lyman, we were told it's one track. Everything's the same, but it became evident and apparent when my daughter transitioned from 2nd grade to 3rd grade at Memorial. It's not the same. They're not getting the same experiences. Just the time difference alone, an hour earlier, is so hard for kids at 7 and 8 years old. I'm going to have kids who will never be in school together for the next 5 years. I have one who hasn't even started yet. I mean, we're all affected, but we all want the same thing. We all want every kid together. I think that's what's most important. And with that, I'd say call the vote. You want to have discussion? Doctor?
No.
You don't want to have discussion?
Oh, do I want to end discussion?
Let's talk about
We go back to paleontology.
We will end the discussion on this motion. Sorry, that's my microphone. Forgot that was a microphone. Looks like a speaker. So we have a motion on the table. And that motion, if we want to restate the motion, there you go. Like 50 million agendas. You don't have to. Oh, so I will just for.
And do you have a motion to call the question? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You have to have a vote on that?
No, because you don't need a motion. The motion's already been called. We had
We're
a
in
discussion. She
discussion.
ended the discussion, so now she's gonna read back the motion.
Okay.
Motion would be, make a vote on the interim elementary school level configurations effective 2024-2025 school year. With Brewster, pre-K 1, Lyman 2-3, Memorial 4-5. I will start with myself. I like to do a roll call vote. Roll call vote. Lindsay Dahlheimer, yes. Jamie? Yeah.
Jamie Roback, yes.
John Malone, yes.
Mariah Roy abstain.
Linda Darcy, I.
Bob Horn, no.
Jason Stone, yes.
Maura Caminello, yes.
Amanda Betty, yes.
Lucy Petrella, aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you
I
guys.
do want to say that I think that we need to make sure we have those community forum to inform the creation of the transition.
I completely agree. I think that there needs to be a lot of community
Absolutely.
conversations, a lot of community healing, and a lot of ask for positivity in this. I hope that we-
Linda, I liked your idea too, like the summer, like things over the summer, the groups. I like that, Levi Code did that this year, and I think it was the first time they did that, and more of that, where they did.
Vicky did
The
great.
incoming kindergartners from both schools, and they all got to meet their friends. It wasn't a separate thing. And to me, that was, I hope that's the beginning of many more new things in the summer transitions.
And I also agree with Lindsay about having a monthly update on the
Yeah,
transition.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, even if it's something short.
No,
So.
you can do that.
Right. Okay. Being it is 8:19, you want to take? Why don't we take a 5-minute break? Okay. Ian, that's okay with everyone? Let's start back up. At 8:04. Thank you. Okay, so we are back. Lovely policy time. New business C, policy review. Hand that off to Bob.
This is the second read in the first group, the 4000A series, one series. We went through them at the last meeting. I can go really quick through them and have a vote to accept them all unless there's somebody who thinks we should look at each one.
No, I think that's a great idea.
I'll just go quickly through each one just to remind you. The first one, abuse of neglect of disabled adults, is a brand new requirement. It's a reporting requirement for any employee to report on abuse of a neglected adult. Items B and C were replaced B with C. The shipment revised one that has new language on vaping and all that stuff that's in there. D, athletic coaches evaluation. It's a new requirement. It gives the coach, the athletic director and the coaches to talk to us. The superintendent responsibility for determination for different things and a process to do it is different for an employee versus a contract. Next one, certified staff development, we delete because it's included in their contracts. Next two, F and G, we're going to use the shipment model, which is the newer version with new legislative requirements. H is brand new. It's new concussion training for coaches. It's by Shipman. I is also new, is emergency action plan for athletic events like any responsibility response. J is the employee transfer and reassignment. That's currently, and we're saying that's okay as it is. K and L. Employee use of district's computer systems. We want to go with Shipman that has new terms of new I think things like Snapchat and all that other stuff that's in there, a lot of new terms and new definition. So that would be adopting the Shipman version. Employment student teacher, this actually, we changed it to employee and student teacher background checks. This is for background checks of student teachers as they come in. And so we have some minor language using the Shipman update, but those two changes, we changed it to employee and student background checks, teacher background check. And so we would eliminate our 4112. O is the employment of teachers. We delete it because it's in our contract. P is external heat illness and awareness, very appropriate for last Saturday. That's a brand new one from Shipman. We didn't have that. The FMLA requirements is updated by Shipman, the current laws, and we recommended changing FMLA to the FMQ, the FMLA by Shipman. Hiring a certified staff. This is, we had discussion on this, is a new in our policy. The social media staff, social media P&U, we're keeping you as our current one. We revised that in I think December. And our social media was up to date. And wellness employees, we're deleting that because it's really a food issue, and we'll cover that in 5135. So those are the first bank of 4,000 series that we went through, and this is the second read, and I recommend we have a motion to adopt all the changes as one. I'll make that motion. Second, be somebody will second it.
Second.
Hey,
Discussion?
all in favor, everybody voted? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, the next group is the first read. these are not really very controversial. A and B are bloodborne pathogens. We're recommending adopting the Shipman version over ours because it's updated, has new drugs that are not in ours. And a variety of other activities that are more current. Employee protection C, we're not recommending any changes in it. And it's our current policy. Hiring a non-certified staff, we didn't have this one, it would be a new one, and we recommended to use the Shipman version to add to our policies. The nepotism, we recommended, that's E and F, recommending going with E. The Shipman version, which is updated language, is a little simpler to read, has better definitions of families and things like that. The G and H, again, we're recommending to use for non-discrimination personnel, we're recommending use the Shipman model because it includes newer laws, newer statutes that are involved. Non-school employment. This is really about working a teacher or employee working in another thing that's not, as long as there's no conflict, we recommend to keep that. It's our current language. Personal records, we recommend to keep that. We've added a sentence by Linda that says you can get a copy of your personnel record under federal law. The actual language is in the document. And K, private tutoring, I recommend to keep it. It just puts on rules for teachers who go tutor and approvals that are necessary. F, L&M, psychiatric drugs, psychotropic drugs. This is we recommending to adopt a new language from Shipman, and has a lot of interesting, new language of basically all preventing us from assigning drugs to our students unless there's lots of information that goes with it. Sections N and Q, we replace our current disabilities, Adult Disability Act, with new requirement with Shipman, because again, it's more up to date. They're virtually similar language. Sex discrimination and harassment, and P and Q, Title 9, sex discrimination. We changed our sex discrimination and harassment in December of 22. We think it's currently up to date, and so we're not recommending using the Shipman one on Title 9 because we've got it covered under our current one. So we're making no change in that one. And finally, our sudden cardiac arrest is a new one, new requirements for to deal with that in sporting events. So those are the new ones. Do you have any questions on them? Happy to go over the details. I know Linda has a lot.
Could you please tell me, no.
But I think we're basically the changes by Shipman are mostly updates in language. They're not really changes in law and changes in regulations.
Yeah, I was trying to think back. I don't think there was one in this series that wasn't an update from Shipman.
We have kept some of ours are okay.
Yeah, but the newer ones.
All right, if we don't have to do anything, that's the first read. I'm just be happy to go answer any questions if you have them in the future.
All right, we'll come right back to Bob. Number 9, committee reports, building committee meeting, August 16th and September 6th. Volley back to you, Bob.
The road is paved. It's been paid for. There's a little bit of left to do on some driveway entrances and exits for more paving. There's a little bit of work to be done on coordinating with the sidewalks in the future. There's some discussion of and I think the staff was going to put out 2 crosswalks, which were not in the wall. They're buying tape to put down. And there's going to be discussion, I think, in the future of traffic calming pumps, which are designed for 15 miles an hour. They're long. You don't launch your car. So that those are being considered. There's coordination going to come with the sidewalks that the town is talking about that location that will have to come through. We'll have to look at that. The
Little League apron also got finished. I noticed the other day.
They also spread all the millings that were left that were over by behind the football field. Those are all been spread. It's a little bumpy, but it's not too bad. And they're going to try to have that compacted more. And again, the road up to the baseball field. The field house, we finally have an agreement on the design. They've done a tremendous amount of work on the slab to make sure it's going to support the building. They have to put anchors in it every 4 feet through the slab, but that's how we expect that this will be completed by October 31st.
Yeah, and you did hear today that mid-October commitment for mid-October to put it
Yeah,
in.
they
So-
start production.
And it should take about 10 days at most, right?
And we don't have any word back on the bond commission. Legislation did pass with money in it for interior work, but we don't have any, it has to get on the bond commission to get authorized.
That won't be till
That-
November.
That needs some legislative push to do that. So, be good to get our reps involved in that. And finally, the pump house, we were looking at for fire protection between the 2 schools. It appears that the current flow analysis is enough pressure in the public water distribution system that we can avoid building the pump house. And that would save, it's like $400,000, somewhere in that range. That we wouldn't have to spend. And so anyway, that's about the result. They did talk about the building reconfiguration and how he has recommended some program that I think you looked at, let's see, whether or not the characteristics, the 4 or 5 characteristics that we were looking at could be evaluated against each of the 4.5 projects. And we need to probably send that out to the.
Yeah, I'll get it from Howie. I did say that after voting, so I'll make sure I send that out. It's an amazing program. It's a free use program right now. It might not always be there, but I tested it on something in my own family and it removes any bias from anything, personal bias, family bias. And I've done it like 3 or 4 times. It's always come out with what it should be in the end. So it'll be interesting for all of us to try it out.
I think what's key to note there too with that building committee is that they're not only been great with obviously the paving of the roads and all the other things that we've been working on, but also the project that we're talking about with the reconfiguration. That committee has been absolutely amazing in the knowledge that the individuals have on that committee is so that if there is anyone out there that's still listening, that still wants to kind of get an idea of why we're moving in this direction, that building committee has given us a significant amount of detail and great recommendations when it comes to that as well too. So we're just not going by the seat of our pants on that.
And I
Several
think
of
you
them have
did-
been involved in school construction.
Right, there's
Yeah.
3, there's
School
3 of
and
them
town,
specifically.
yeah.
Yep.
Did we have a number, and I wasn't sure if it was mentioned at that building, what the savings was with the pump house now? And going in the direction that we're going in?
So we don't have a firm number on what the sprinkler system would cost with this new alternative, but we do have 600, upwards of just about 660 saved. So if it were to come in at about 3, but we haven't gotten a firm quote yet. They're working.
And that
on it.
extra money would go back to capital.
It stays in capital and can be approved or authorized for another project as deemed added to something or a new project.
As in, Can we disclose the number that was saved on just the paving project alone
From the original project.
from the original
Well, we
pricing?
didn't do phase 3 yet.
Yeah, we
so
haven't
I think
finished
a lot of
phase
people
three.
do that, yeah. And
Oh, yeah, the other thing is the turf is gonna start on June 17th, so we have to be out of school on at least no athletic activity or graduation on the field after June 17th.
Yeah, June
So
12th.
the 12th.
It was June 17th this year.
And so they're gonna start on the turf replacement, I think it'd take a month or something like that.
and there's not gonna be any access to the track. For a month.
And you won't, the track won't be available for use. We're only replacing the turf, not the track. So it's only the green stuff that's getting replaced.
But then there is funds for any kind of track maintenance if we need to do any kind of maintenance.
But we also made it last an extra year as well,
Yes.
too. So that's key to understand as well, too.
So that's been the busy building committee. They also changed the future dates, but that's other than that.
Thank you, Bob. We're getting close, guys. Communications. I just wanted to go and, besides the ones I read off today, we did receive a media request from the Connecticut Examiner, who both Doug and I spoke to. And that article did come out, and if any of you saw it, if you haven't, I can send it to the whole group. And a reporter from the Times contacted me yesterday, and I have to give them a call tomorrow. Besides that,
Lindsay, I forgot one thing on the policy committee, we're starting on the 9,000 series, which is the bylaws, and rather than the 5,000 series, because we were looking for the roles of the board.
Yep.
So the policy committee will meet next week on the right before the fair, the bylaw stuff.
Could I also mention, because you mentioned the date change for the building committee, and that indirectly impacts the work of the policy committee. I think it's a positive move. Now, building is going to be the same night as policy, but what that means is policy has to finish in an hour, not next week. But it'd be nice if we finished an hour next week, but into the next months, it would be 4 o'clock policy and 5 o'clock building. But for those that serve on both, I think it makes it more convenient to be in this room.
Any other communications? I just wanted to mention, the Crowd Carnival was amazing. I didn't get to be around most of the day. I was upstairs doing Kindness Rocks with Durham Rec. But the kids had such a blast. It was,
Sorry.
somebody, oh, that was Bob.
Are we doing that?
Even despite the weather, it was amazing to see, and the testament that who was putting this together along with Deb. They just winged it, and they brought the inflatable course inside the gym, and they just kept going. You had donut eating contests, and the kids, I think they said from the, what?
Was it meals?
I think so. No, might have been mine.
You weren't here.
I don't remember.
Huh?
I didn't eat them. I think it was lemons. But yeah, it was a great day, and I think the kids just kept saying, please don't cancel it, let's do something. Like, we just don't want to go back to class, and they made it work, and the sun came out, they did lawn games, the dunk tank still happened, and it's just the tradition. I hope it continues, because they just had such a blast. I don't know if anyone else has anything, upcoming events, so.
I've gotten a couple of things in the last couple of weeks, and I just wondered, the high school kids, I've seen it myself, not this year because I'm still working, but the high school kids leaving the high school apparently is like becoming an issue again with driving out. So I just wondered, I thought this SRO, isn't he there, Doug, do you know? Is he assigned to the high school? He used to be at the end of the day, like at 2-ish,
Yeah.
just to kind of monitor the high school kids leaving.
Or driving too fast.
Well, apparently, I don't know if this happened today or yesterday, but 2 were actually racing down out of the, so little, like,
Hence the speed
little
bumps that are
things like,
coming up.
yeah, it's little minor issues.
We active, but we do have cameras, so we could. have-
Okay, you might want to look that up, but I also felt like, I know from last year when I would go pick up my daughters before they got their driver's license, like, I always remember seeing him, so I was
Yeah.
surprised to hear that So I don't know if he's just not assigned there this year yet.
She's probably just still making the rounds at all the schools.
I don't know, but I would say maybe that might be a good spot for him if there's becoming issues with some newer drivers pulling out. Maybe they need to be reminded of. It's just mostly parents that are also there, I guess, picking up that are witnessing it, so.
You could send them to Research Parkway. That was always a
And it was today, the race?
Or the Burlington.
It was today, yeah. To pick it, because it's so nice and flat now.
Great.
Well, that was a concern. but
Yeah, well.
That's why we're
Yeah.
considering the.
Yeah, bumps still, maybe.
And not just for the young drivers.
Yeah,
No, I know, yeah.
25 is hard to keep.
How fast were you
Okay,
driving?
yeah.
Cruise control and let it
No problem going 25.
Yeah.
I've seen it a lot playing pickleball early in the morning and you see the kids that are late to school.
Yeah.
Driving very fast down the hill from Strong. Maybe we can encourage if you're late for school and you say, I didn't want to drive super fast, you could give them that 5 seconds. I don't know, but
Right, exactly.
Maybe
Yeah, that's
the
the
first things to use.
Artificial intelligence.
Must be.
Anyone else have anything? Okay, we can move on to 11, public comment. This public comment can refer to items on or off the agenda. Do we have any in person? Patrick?
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
It's me again, sorry. So Patrick Holwood, Durham, once again, I apologize for bringing down the room once more by getting back to some now old business, but I did want to make these points before the night ended. So it's been voted on, it passed. I would just like to reiterate what I said before about when it comes to the planning, making sure that as this goes forward, that we think about this in conjunction with the long-term plan as well. I'm still concerned that they are going to end up clashing, especially if we go with that K-5 plan at Memorial. I'm concerned that we're going to see further disruption that way, and I think that is similar to the situation we're now finding ourselves in versus the plan that was made when the one that we have currently. So like, just like to caution that. I would also like to quickly make a point that I believe it's when we talk about things that people are used to, I don't necessarily mean that should be synonymous with okay. Like for example, with the COVID lockdown, I'm sure a lot of us were used to that at the end, but I don't think anyone was satisfied with it. And then with the Brewster Corn Memorial stuff throughout the many years that has been a thing, just because those transitions did exist and people went with it and were maybe okay with it, I know I have many friends that were in Brewster Corn and were not a fan of those transitions and looked at Lyman and liked that better. So that's why a K-5 thing working toward that's good. But I just caution having that mindset for it. And the other thing going on, just talking about from the heart, and I hesitated to say this, but I do want to make this point. This is not just tonight. This is not just this board. This is not just this room. I think this is something that has been prevalent throughout this entire town for a while. I'm very disappointed with the passive aggressiveness that I feel is very toxic and rooted into this community. People, as it was mentioned tonight, people are scared to come out and speak their mind. And I'm really saddened by that, regardless of what side you're on, whether it's this issue, whether it's overall community drama, politics, things like that. I find that incredibly sad. And I'm becoming incredibly frustrated by it. So seeing that in conjunction with this issue as well, regardless of your opinion on it, I'm very disappointed. I think we really need to be better. I'll lovingly blame this district for instilling that into me because of basically being taught the core ethical values like scripture. And I'm not gonna apologize for that because I really, I really value that bringing up. And I hope that that continues to be this district's attitude and is represented on every form of it, administration, boards, staff, students, everything. And then finally, when it comes down to the K-5, once again, you have to convince people of that goal. You've convinced a lot of people, but there's still, as we've seen tonight, so much division about what we're going to do going forward. If we look at the past referendum, the one specifically about Lyman, it obviously didn't pass because, well, Durham voted for it, Middlefield didn't. And to this day, there are a lot of people that are still not convinced that closing the building and transferring the experiences of Lyman to another building are still not convinced that that is the best way to go. And at this point, I don't think that if that vote were to be held tomorrow again, if any sort of referendum, I don't think we would see any change in that. So I just beg this board going forward to have that be the top of our mind of how can we convince people this is the best way to go. That community conversation idea, I believe, is brilliant. And I was just talking to Nicole Ercolani about this during the break. It needs to be not just board to community it needs to be a cross conversation between both, and people in the community need to be able to talk to each other as well. We need to not talk down to people. We need to not accuse, antagonize, or scapegoat them. We need to talk with them. So thank you all for, again, the work that you are doing. I really hope that we focus in on what we need to do going forward. And I look forward to seeing, and I apologize for likely the many other public comments that I'll be making that you'll have to hear. So, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Do we have any public comment left in the room? Do we have any public comment online? If so, please raise your hand. There's the little icon thing. Okay, I don't see any public comment online, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by John, seconded by Amanda. If he doesn't get it, all those in favor? Thank you all. Have a good day.
I think I'm cross-eyed.